I wanted to respond to Dajjal saying that a major point of anti-Israel people will disappear when Iran becomes free. And I don't think that's ever been the biggest argument that Israel is trying to drag America into a war against Iran. So, in my view, the anti-Semitic left hates Israel because of infinite slander that comes out of the Red Green Alliance, from claims about drones making baby sounds, or claims that Israelis killed each other on October 7th, or fake news about Det Iman that came from the Israeli left, or just general denial about Israel's persistent attempts to minimize casualties. You have a little bit more of a point about right-wing anti-Semitism because they do actually make such claims that Israel is trying to drag America into wars. But I still believe that they're going to shift to something else. So the way I see it, anti-Semitism is the tool that people use to pave over gaps in their epistemology. So the left has to lean on anti-Semitism because they can't acknowledge the evil inside of Islam. The right has different reasons. So the one that you mentioned is isolationism, and you can't really explain American intervention in Iran when you're an isolationist unless you decide to blame the Jews for it somehow. But there are many others. You could talk about Jewish space lasers because you can't acknowledge climate change, or you have Kanye who came out with his Heil Hitler song, and one of the lyrics in that song is that he basically admits he's on it because his kids got taken away, and so therefore Heil Hitler, right? Candace is still coping with the fact that Romans crucified Jesus. So the thing about anti-Semitic slanders is that they're never genuine. They're not a rational reason for the hate, and so there'll always be another slander, and the refutation is not going to be decisive like a refutation of a rational argument. So that's why I'm pessimistic about the consequences of that for anti-Semitism specifically. But I'm still very happy to see Iran fit.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think the Joe was not saying that that's the reason they give. I think he was making two separate points. I think he was just saying that if the Islamic Republic on a separate, like he was giving the reasons, and then on a separate point, he was making that if the Islamic Republic falls, a lot of the support for the terrorists, the anti-Israeli terrorist groups will also stop. So I think that's what he was trying to say. He wasn't saying that was the reason people were giving.
So
And the
what
Joe
I'm
just
saying is
gives it.
that the
Yeah.
isolationists are still going to be isolationists, and if Iran
Yeah,
is
but he
free and
wasn't.
Israel,
But he wasn't. But the Dajjal was not making the point that the isolationists were making that argument, right? So he wasn't. He wasn't connecting the isolationist arguments to this point. Like I don't think he disagrees. I don't. I think he also
okay,
he agrees that the isolationists will continue to be isolationists.
then
No, that's okay. Somebody just raised their hand. Can you do it again? Whoever it was. Oh, there you go. Ilad. Add him to the list. Okay, guys, this is something very important that I want you guys to understand regarding what's happening in Iran right now. It might be a little bit complicated, so please bear with me. So, right now, the situation in Iran is that the reformists, which are the more dangerous part of the Iranian government compared to the hardliners, right? Because they are much more clever and they are actually trying to sacrifice Khamenei, and they are actually, some of them are actually in favor of the current protests that are happening because it's never going to get big enough for the system to completely topple, but it might get big enough for them to be able to remove Khamenei. And they see Khamenei as an obstacle for them to bring in the Third Republic. So these are the reformers who are trying to keep the Islamic Republic alive, but they want to get rid of Khamenei. They're anti Khamenei, but not against the Islamic Republic. And they want to use the current revolution as a way. These are the people who want America or Israel to attack, but like a surgical attack in a way that Khamenei will be removed. On the Persian side, we are telling people that we need a lot more people to show up into the streets. The current levels are not nearly enough. And right now, the revolution is a revolution that is more in line with somebody that like Rouhani would want, not Pahlavi. like this needs to get at least 10 times bigger for it to be a Pahlavi revolution, right? So the so what happened in Venezuela is right now the huge parts of the Islamic Republic's dream. Like a lot of people looking from outside might think like, oh no, the Islamic Republic must be very afraid that what happens to Maduro is going to happen to them right now. It's actually the opposite. It might be scary for Khamenei and his camp, but the part of the Islamic Republic that is trying to surgically remove Khamenei and then get control, they think like, oh my God, imagine if American helicopters show up one day and they took Khamenei and then now we are in control. Because look at what happened in Venezuela. I mean, I don't know if things are going to change in Venezuela, but if like the entire military is still there. So the equivalent to that for Iran would be they remove Khamenei and the IRGC is now in control and they could have a reformist face instead of Khamenei to completely rebrand. So this is why the two things need to happen. The number of people in the streets needs to be 10 times higher, right? And we need like the chants that are anti-Khamenei are not useful. In fact, there are some reformers who we hate them more than the hardliners who are joining in on the death to Khamenei chants. A death to Khamenei chants is, I mean, I'm not saying people shouldn't say death to Khamenei, but if you don't pair that with, like, if you don't follow that with pro Pahlavi chants, it's useless. It's useless. I mean, even if you want to say death to something, you have to say death. It would be more useful if you say death to the Islamic Republic, because at least you're basically saying death to the entire system rather than Khamenei. We have been seeing this for like months right now because we saw a lot of signals from the regime that they were trying to signal to the West and Israel that if you get rid of Khamenei, we will behave after that, right? So, for example, we had Pezeshkian recently coming out and giving a speech saying, "Oh, all the decision like Khamenei is the one who's holding everything together. Oh no, I hope they don't kill Khamenei because everything will be completely." Gone. Like all of us wouldn't know what to do anymore if we lose Khamenei. Like if they just kill Khamenei, it will all just everything will fall apart. He was constantly like they, and he specifically said in that speech, they don't need to kill any single one of us, the enemy. Our enemy only has to kill Khamenei, and it will be done. It's within the DNA of the Islamic Republic for it not to ever be able to be friends with America. And right the day after, Larijani came out and said that if things change, we could be actually friends with America. Right. So there was a lot of signals that should suggest, and then we had Rouhani coming out every other day, coming out and saying directly things against Khamenei's speeches, which is like was unprecedented. Right. And so it's pretty clear to us what's happening. And again, we are very skeptical about the level of involvement Americans might want to have in this revolution, because this is the warning, for example, that I gave on my Persian show, right? Because Prince Reza Pahlavi just had an interview on a podcast with the Wall Street Journal. So Prince Reza Pahlavi just had an interview with the Wall Street Journal, and in that interview, he was asked whether he would want to see Americans do something like they did in Venezuela in Iran, right? And then he basically said no. He basically said that it's not needed in Iran. And the Iranian people, basically, he said this is the Iranian people's revolution and all of that. And then also at the end of that podcast, you guys could read that in the Wall Street Journal. He also mentioned regarding we don't need any boots on the ground by Americans, right? So a lot of anti-Pahlavi Iranians went out with this, like they started like all of a sudden this blew up on Iranian social media because the anti-Pahlavis were like, "Oh my God, look at this! Look at what Reza Pahlavi is doing. He's betraying Iranians. The Iranian people need American intervention more than anything right now, and this idiot is going out and saying like, "Oh no, please don't come and intervene," even though that's what we need right now." Like this guy is, look, like he's throwing us under the bus. Like, look, we told you not to trust him, and this proves it, right? But you know, the show that I just did on the Persian channel, which is actually being received very well. It's already got 120K views, which in Iran is actually like that. Those are good numbers because we don't have like the entire English speaking world watching. It's only Iranians, right? So we're doing a really good job on the Persian channel, and a lot of people in Iran were messaging me like, Armin, like what happened? Why is the prince saying that? We can't do this by ourselves. We should be welcoming American and Israeli help. Like, what the hell is happening? And then I went on the show and I basically told them, like, guys, first of all, you should be trusting your leader. We're in the middle of the war. Stop panicking. Second of all, Iran International, we cannot trust Iran International anymore because Iran International did two things that it shows that they are actually secretly anti-Pahlavi. But they on purpose mistranslated what the prince had said. Okay, Michael as well. So the Iran International is now putting everywhere that, oh, the prince said that no foreign intervention is needed. But that's not what the prince said. If you actually pay attention to what the prince said, he was specifically saying no to the two examples of boots on the ground or a Maduro like operation. He wasn't saying no to foreign intervention completely. In fact, when Trump said that we will attack the Islamic Republic if they start killing Iranian people, Reza Pahlavi put out a statement thanking Trump for that. So how could you go and say that he is against all foreign intervention when he came out and thanked Trump for saying that we will take action if the regime starts killing Iranian people? So what he specifically is saying is he doesn't want any American boots inside Iran. So he welcomes many other forms of help, including a missile attack or just the announcement of support just to scare the anti-riot police. There are many forms of intervention that are limited, that are surgical, that requires no boots on the ground, that Prince Reza Pahlavi will support. But Iran International made it sound like he was basically against all form of assistance or help. Okay, so that was a misrepresentation. But his his statement against any boots on the ground actually is very, very logical because this has to be an Iranian revolution. What happened in Venezuela is not a revolution that Venezuelans can. I mean, I don't even know if it's a revolution yet. It's not. They just took out Maduro. Everything else is still the same. But even if it turns out to be a revolution and we do actually have regime change in Venezuela, it's an American revolution. It's not a revolution by the Venezuelan people. And America, when America has done a regime change, America wants its share. America wants to have a say. America would want to come and say, well, where's you need to pay us back for doing this for you, right? And you could see that Trump is basically dismissing Machado, and we don't want any of that. We want to make sure that even if we have any help from America, it's as limited, it's very limited. It's only maybe as limited in a way that just makes the Iranian people's job easier against the anti-riot police, but not to the point where we could say America came and did a regime change. This has to be an Iranian regime change. It has to be an Iranian revolution, because if it becomes an American one, then the Iranian people would not be able to decide what comes after the regime change because it wasn't their revolution. And we are scared that if Americans are going to decide what comes after the regime change, because Americans have different interests than Iranian people. America would be very happy with a Rouhani-led government that will be willing to give everything to America, everything. So here's the problem: a patriotic leader is going to be Iran first and then Iran's ally second, right? But a Rouhani government or a Nargis Mohammadi government or whatever, a Tajdada government or whatever, they're going to be able to give up everything that Trump or America wants, and even maybe keep their IRGC still in command. And United States might be satisfied with that because they're going to give a lot of oil and gas at very cheap prices, and the IRGC staying in power. America might like that because they might say like, well, it's not as chaotic as they have a bad experience with Iraq, so they might think that if we were going to get rid of IRGC altogether, they might think that's the same as the debathification that happened in Iraq and all the chaos and ISIS that came after that. Some reformers might be able to convince Trump that, listen, we will give to you more than Prince Reza Pahlavi would ever be willing to give you. That's one. And two, we will do it with IRGC in power, with the same people that were part of the military in power compared to before. So it's going to be less chaotic. I mean, they have been advertising to Americans that all the problem has always been Khamenei. And we can get along if we just remove Khamenei. And if they could convince Trump of that, then Trump might be willing to, deal with that. So this is why we don't want this to be an American revolution, because we're afraid that if this is an American regime change, then America is going to decide that, well, then we did it, so we get to say what happens, and we don't trust them with their decisions. We want this revolution to be completely Iranian. Any U.S. involvement needs to be very limited, so that Iranian people could say that we did this revolution and we determine our own destiny, and our decision is Pahlavi. Hila, you wanted to?
I'm dying to talk. Yes. I just want to relax you that Israel, the people, the government, the army, the Mossad, everybody understand you better than you understand Iran. Okay? They understand everything, all the nuance. They understand everything, and they will not let Trump make a mistake, but they need you
They
all
don't
on the
control
street.
Trump. No, no, no. They
No, we
don't
don't
control Trump.
control Trump. But I read you from today newspaper, okay? First of all the time they talk about the Republic, Islamic Republic. So don't think they think that he's
No, no,
anyone.
Hila, wait, Hila. I know. Okay, this is not about lack of information. I've never, I never assumed that the American intelligence or the Israeli intelligence is missing some information here.
You're afraid
This is
for the
about
Iranians that they do not understand?
this is about interest. So Iran's interest is more mutually aligned with Israel and less mutually aligned with America.
For sure.
So this is not about informing American intelligence.
Okay, I read you from today newspaper. They mentioned that the Iranian regime will not fall because we don't want other outside factory to mingle, not Trump and not Israel, because our security system and inform intelligence are clear that if we operate first and attack, and we will kill the chance to drop the regime, because the people will unite around the regime like he did in other contexts. So this is what they are leading with. Their biggest fear is that the regime will not fall, because if we do the wrong thing on the tactics, the people will unite to hold the regime while it's falling. So that's what scares them the most.
That's an unjustified fear.
Good to know. I
Who's
will
saying
write
that?
it by
Who's
in
saying that?
topics.
None of the people who are fighting against the regime are going to be convinced to now defend the regime. Whose
No,
analysis
but
is
you think no, the people, the other people, the reforms or the other groups or whatever, that if they will kick the wrong
that?
guy
The
or do
anti
the
no
wrong
no
move, it will just
oh.
weaken it a bit, and then the people will unite to hold it. This is what they are
The
afraid.
anti-regime people are going to remain anti-regime, and the pro-regime people are going to remain pro-regime. Like that's what I could promise you that. But I do understand not trying to, if something is going to the right direction, not messing with it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I understand Israel's government position right now is that things are moving well, so don't mess with it, right?
yeah,
That I understand, okay?
yeah,
But we're not going to have a rally around the flag effect, and the rally around the so-called rally around the flag effect during the 12-day war was fake. It did not happen. It only seemed like it happened because
yeah.
everybody who was pro-Israeli was
Was fake.
shut down and arrested, and the government amplified the few people who came out and say, well, I was against the regime, but now that there's war, now I'm pro-regime. Okay, that is
So it's fake
that's the
news.
government.
It's propaganda.
That is fake news. That is Islamic Republic propaganda. That did not happen.
Right. Good to know. Good to know. I will write it down in topics. But I mean, it's tricky because here everybody's like, we don't want to interfere because they don't want to give them excuses to hate the West. But so they're like waiting for the bigger number. They're saying it's less than 200 cities. It's not enough. It's not enough. Everybody needs to be out. But they told us today that there was one city that was dropped. There was like all the city was in the streets and they
Yep.
burned the police station.
Yeah. But guys, I'm gonna be honest. Like, we need more people in the streets. It's not enough, and we need to tell. A lot of people are afraid because of the previous what the regime had previously done. So our job, like the content creators who make content in Persian, is to keep pushing for people to come to the streets. And now that the prince has given a date and a time, we're going to be working overtime to just because if this is going to be devastating if people don't respond to the prince. The prince has now announced the exact time where people need to respond, and if Iranians don't respond in large numbers, it's going to look bad. It's going to look like his command doesn't mean anything. So we need to now go and work overtime to just constantly remind Iranian people that this is it. This is your chance to show that this is serious. And I'm going, like, I may be too extreme, but I'm going around and calling everybody who's going to stay home.
I love this idea because I think spontaneous leaving the house is more hard. But if you have like 3 days to prepare and everybody's like, in 3 days we'll do this, in 3 days everybody will clap in the street, clapping in the street, just clapping. Then it's more easy to prepare mentally to this moment and to talk to people before and then hearing people doing it and then doing it yourself. It makes it more easy.